Good to
Good
be here.
night. Good night. Good to have you.
Well, what
Pleasure
a
to have you
start.
back.
Y'all have put me to tremendous disadvantage, but I will try my best. Give me, before I
Uh,
get into my real topic, it is so much
uh-huh.
y'all put out there. If I weren't folks, I could spend the rest of the night talking about it. Uh, my real topic is hold on a sec, please. Got so much notes.
Yeah, me too. I've been
Oh,
making so many notes too. They're
oh.
funny.
My real topic tonight is we are now the Republic of Barbados. We are now the Republic of Barbados. Begbados. And
DOS. Let
I
me write
explain.
that.
I'll explain that later. But before you do,
Like,
give me a couple of minutes to
yeah, sure.
respond to.
Go ahead.
I when I listened to when I read the Prime Minister's report in the press, when I listened to some of you, I was tempted to almost feel disappointed.
Hmm. Hmm.
But then I realized that the Prime Minister can't disappoint me because in the 9 years or so we spent around the cabinet table as colleagues, as equals, she was never outstanding. There was never a wow moment. I never brought any particular insights, any perspective that nobody else thought and said, wow, where did that come from? Minister Morley. So therefore, it is more of the same. To the point where I resented once again, where the Prime Minister is coming to chastise people
Yes.
as though we
Yes.
some big
Yes.
mama of Barbara
With
can
the,
treat
with
all like
that
a bunch.
finger. With that finger.
One would have thought that from one who had been abroad and the all kind of issues that would have grown. I'm sure she was in constant touch with Barbados, so she knew what was happening, what the dissatisfaction of the public are or were. She would have come to somewhere to explain, give context, show leadership, but then to jump on the horse that you're going to ride us into the ground as though you know better than anybody. And better. I think it's not good enough. And to be generous, I like to think that it was an example of jet lag. To be generous, I would put that down to jet lag, and she has not time yet had time to fully accustom to adjust
But
herself.
but
Okay.
Glyne, she did admit, and I was just looking for it here. She did admit to not being well.
Yeah.
So she may not have recovered because she
No,
talked about how Tuesday she was in London, Wednesday, and then Paris on Thursday, and then I think on flight Friday she had a
no,
chest infection.
I
that
beg
was
your pardon then, Dr. Purdy. That may be the reason for the solution she's given to
no,
the those involved in crime.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
take back my comments tonight
no.
on that
Okay,
matter.
okay,
That reference for the
yeah.
was a previous trip when they went on a road trip to raise investments. That is some weeks ago. So that has nothing to do with this current trip where she went to
Well, the date,
Algiers and
well, the date,
Ethiopia.
date I'm seeing came in from her speech last night on the 15th of September,
Okay, all right. Maybe it
where
was
she
another one.
where she speaks to it.
All right. No, not a problem.
Yeah,
But the point is,
but go ahead, go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah.
point is
But
there has to be a reason.
she's out of the country so often, unannounced. You don't know when and where and why she goes. That we cannot really keep track of her in any two ways, right? And when the Prime Minister admitted that we have to find a way dealing with crime, that is the admission that her government does not have a clue
Does
about
not have a
it
correct,
has nothing to
correct,
offer.
correct.
Nothing to offer. You all would have thought she would have met with her and come and said, okay, this is what we have done so far. What do you think? No. And not only did she not was able to reflect some plan, but she also has has kept silent. Some I'm getting repeat in my ear, but she would have kept silent. We are yet to hear from Minister Kurt Humphrey, who's the Minister of Crime Prevention. She does not even mention his name. He does not come and talk. So they're failing on everything. And if I just have one, um, I said this before you go on. Prime Minister, that clip you played of the late Prime Minister Point after talking about her despot. that was, from my knowledge, and it was very close to the situation then. Even though I left the Barber Slave Party before he did. He, that was forced upon. I mean, it pained him
Mhm.
to have to do that despite everything
Yes,
because
yes,
yeah, the truth is that she was not his automatic favorite to be a successor. He had his eyes on two gentlemen with genuine working class background, understanding and feeling, but they did not have the passion and the drive and the ambition for it. So he had to end up back and select her. That is how she became that prime. That is the background. That's the real thing. So not she was no
yes,
star backup performer that was automatic. So let us not delude ourselves that she was.
correct, correct.
Let me get to my real topic. We are now the Republic of Barbados. And why do we describe it, our country in set flattening terms? Because the government has been seeking the way, lead the way, and seeking to discard. Remember our national motto, pride and industry.
And industry,
You
yes,
don't remember?
yes,
Now that we have become the Republic of Barbados, I think that has been replaced by pride in charity, pride in charity, and because charity, I said charity because government has adopted as a matter of policy that we go into, we have a regime of philanthropy. Philanthropy is just a big, sweet fashion name for a charity. Philanthropy is more sophisticated how sound, but both philanthropy and charity do the same. They're supposed to be helping people to make life better for people. So whether they call me a philanthropist or a charitable giver, it is the same thing, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
They say that those, if you read up the literature on philanthropy and charity, one thing that they say that charity is a more short-term, immediate effort to help body or situation, cash or kind. Well, philanthropy is much more lofty, long-term
yeah,
exercise, operating at a different level, but to do the same thing. Um, Same thing, the same result help persons. But if you look at page, and this is government policy goes back to page 8 of the BLP's 1922 manifesto, in which it pledged the new Barbados Labour Party government will create a national policy on philanthropy, volunteerism, and active citizenship. That is on page 8 of the BLP's 2022 manifesto. Then on page 26 of the same document, you said the BLP made it clear that the BLP would increase engagement with the critical third sector, knowing that volunteerism and philanthropy add value to life and society and are a social investment in their own right. Once elected in 2022, the new BLP government went on to consolidate and formalize and institutionalize philanthropy by adding the term of third sector to the portfolio of Minister Colin Jordan, who was labor and social security, and who's now labor, social security, and the third sector, right? So it shows that they are subcontracting the responsibility of the government to look after its needy citizens to others, to individuals. And I have a resentment, I have very uncomfortable with that for a number of reasons. For long, because of even before we got the right to vote in 1951. Even let me tell you, as a matter of fact, we are back in 1880, in the dark days of colonialism. A few years after, the abolition of slavery, the law was passed to set up the Poor Law Relief Act was passed in 1880 to set up poor law boards in each parish for each local for each parochial council to administer money raised out of the taxpayers of that parish for the poor. So we've had, even way back then, there was an admission by even the government of that day that was an inherent obligation of the government to look after the vulnerable in cash and kind in the society. As a matter of fact, even back then, they not only sought to give relief in cash and kind to ease the situation of the poor, they even, and also they would not engender a long-term syndrome of dependency. They offered apprenticeships and training in skills and water. This is 1880. And then when the popular governments in Barbados came into being, through the democratic socialists, which at the heart of it is that the government has an obligation to look after the basic needs of the most vulnerable in society. All right? Health, education, welfare, housing, transport, all along with security. Those are the crucial things of the society. The BLP did it under Grant Adams and future other governments. The DLP also did it in its terminal. So that's an established, announced policy. But of course, you don't hear this government talking about democratic socialism or social democracy. In fact, there's no discernible, detectable philosophical basis on which this government operates. The ad hocism and part of the problem is that when you put yourself deep in the hands of the IMF and the North American investors who do not let you get close to the term socialism, you can't speak that language because that was alienate them and run you for your possible sources of loans and funding and what. So that is, there's no mention of that, but the responsibility remains the same. What makes me become so aghast is that this bag-bears phenomenon was cemented in my mind when I read in the paper that the Cumulus Hospital was in collaboration with Salt Gasoline, coming to the public to raise $100,000 to buy some body need equipment. $100,000. In the scheme of what the Barbados economy, what, 10 billion or something like that? 8, 9, 10 billion. Chicken feed. Not only that, here was the QEH going to the public to raise $100,000 to buy body equipment through the public buying gas and contributing to that fund, even though we already pay money to a levy to contribute to QEH, right? Even that, and I think that so that tells you what the depth of it is something. 100,000 at a time when countless millions were spent on Carrie Fester. It has to be countless millions because when it was announced that when they were getting ready for it, trying to give some samples of readiness at the baking round, the so-called Mechanical Gardens for Calypso Finals, they had to cover 41,000 square feet of area with pavers. And my check-in in construction center said that cost at least $700,000. So you can find money to pay for $700,000, but you can't find money to pay $100,000. And the prime minister was expressing horror at the idea that neither she nor the cabinet knew that the QES needed $100,000. Huh?
But Glyne, I know from reliable sources, because I've spoken with people involved in the QEH in the area of finance, that there were pieces of equipment that they were trying to get philanthropic donations raised even overseas to get the equipment. So if the levy is supposed to have provided for the financial aspects of the QEH, why is the QEH having then to look to raise money?
But I grew up in the colonial. I came out of the colonial. You saw they do first. We entered independent.
Yeah.
No, we entered public. And we saw we had a sense of dignity. We never saw charity and begging as part of our lifestyle. And what it was done, anything that was done quietly, discreetly.
Yes.
Even in the neighborhood grew up in Spoon. So
people didn't want the left hand to know what the right hand was doing.
No. If you had a neighbor that you had the feeling or you got indication that they did not have a meal, a meal will be provided. Nobody will go to the front door or the side door. Somebody will go through the back to decide
Yes.
all the pay. I
Yeah.
had
To
it
maintain the
discreetly.
dignity.
That the dignity, that is the kind
Yes.
of
Yes.
society I grew up in. So when I see this
Yes.
parading of charity and so-called philanthropy all over the front pages, it really, it's abhorrent. Um, if I, especially even for back to school, not only
Oh,
for back to school, no, but at Christmas time when you have hampers, the politicians giving up, the children's faces are shown. If you can do that, give it to the adults, give it to the head teacher, but not the children's faces. In the same way, you will not show the face of a child who was the victim of some sexual assault or something. The same, that was discretion, that was the standard the society operated. Now we live in a society where everybody who's donating 50 cents want their front picture on the front page, shake hands, skin in their teeth, and showing off things that had to be
photo
uh,
op
photo op for everybody. Even in the big, especially the biggest charity, the Maria Holder
foundation.
Foundation, the St. Lane Trust, fine, does all well and good. They make their contribution. But I know in this life, there's no such thing as a free lunch. There's always a quid pro quo.
You
And
better believe it.
there's something do for do. You do me, I do you. There must be a benefit apart from the psychological benefit that are supposed to come from helping others through charity or philanthropy. It's supposed to give you, okay, so okay, I've contributed to society and giving back. I'm trying to help somebody improve their life, etc. These charitable institutions get tax benefits and write-offs,
Hmm.
personally or collectively as an institution. So there is a financial benefit from them.
Yep.
Apart from that,
Yep.
it also helps them to raise their profile as good
Hmm.
corporate citizens. So,
Yes.
so, but I think it's unbecoming of Barbados for a country that, and let me tell you, I grew up also in the 50s. Remember the days of him, Madame Eiffel, who was a social worker.
Well,
She was the step.
I was a little fella then. I was not being
Man,
thought about.
you can leave home there. You can,
I
but
wasn't even.
no,
I hadn't even landed yet.
maybe Rosa has heard about. She was Henry. She was
Madam
Henry.
Eiffel was married to my grandmother's uncle.
There you are. There you are. She was a well-known social worker. Discreet.
Remember, I'm an Eiffel.
Okay. Uh,
Rosaline Eiffel Corbin.
all right. But in my neighborhood in Spooners Hill, I have that was my frame of reference in my life. There was a man called uh, Mr. Clifford Gooden Edgell, who headed the Dorcas League and rose as a good. And you too, for the other
Yeah.
student of the Bible, know that Dorcas was a big philanthropist, was do-gooder, a charitable work in Jesus'
Yes.
following. So he
Yes.
created the
Yes.
Dorcas League, and he did a lot of good social work across Barbados. I remember too because he had a very impressive-looking uniform, and that caught my eye. Apart from that, and therefore, okay, to give it further context, he's the grandfather of the now present Minister of Tourism and National Transport, Ian Goodnedgell, who comes from the Long Gaps. So so some people think that is what he would have got his idea of serving people for having been acquainted with his grandfather's legacy or whatever. So we are accustomed in Barbados to people doing good work discreetly, effectively, and benefiting. So I do not see how then the need for us to have this big palaver. Not only that, but there's another side to this. At the grassroots level, like me, there are people who could relate to it. But if there's a slide I set to act for for a slide from a publication called Business Barbados on page 128. Further, if you could read that first paragraph on me.
Well,
The
I
value
can
of
tell you, I got some good eyes, boy, but I don't know my eyes are good.
the value of the third sector. Okay, the barber.
Let me
This is
see if I
this is
can. Let me see if I
yeah.
can read it.
I can do it. I got it.
You got
the,
it? Okay.
yeah. This at least the first paragraph. The
Okay.
Barbados
Just bring
government,
it down.
and this is in a very
Right.
prestigious institution, a publication called Business Barbados. It's on
The
page
Barbados
120.
government.
the
will
Barbados
not
government will
will
not
not be
be
able
able to afford
to afford
all
all
social services to its this
residents
to its residents in the not too
in
distant
the not
future.
so yes.
Dwindling economic reserves, the pressure of an aging population, and rising health concerns such as diabetes and other chronic illnesses indicate that the situation will likely could go up a bit more, intensify in the near future, right? And this is an interview, and this is quite interesting. There's an article written by by a lady by the name of Sherry Hord, Hord, and Peter Booth, a well-known name, especially I'm sure Mr. Lewis will be very familiar with that name in the Bathsheba East Coast area. They are writing it. They're writing on behalf of the Peter and John Booth Foundation. So there's an established philanthropy. All right. So what is happening is now, and what we are doing now is that we are past government. I mean, he comes up with great authority, and this is in a very high end article publication pitched at the international business sector, at the business sector. So this is the audience that you're seeking to induce and comfort to further intensify and contribute towards philanthropy in Barbados. And and I think that I think it's something we have to watch because it is well known that with money, the kind of money that operates in that circle at that level about the philanthropy, they are known all over the world to use that to insinuate themselves into positions of power, authority, and influence. And I do not think that as a self-respecting Barbados, I will be prepared to to pass on the future of Barbados, the future social development of Barbados, in a way that successive governments have done as part of a national inbred, instinctive, natural affinity to your society wants and needs, that Belgians doing it for themselves. I
Mhm.
hear as is a republic asking other people, no matter how well intentioned they are, there's nobody who born outside of Barbados, and some people who can love Barbados and have a greater attachment to Barbados than me and us who born here and raised here and identify with it. Nobody. I don't care how philanthropic you are. And I therefore am very weary of this drive towards subcontracting, like I said, um, our responsibility for our development of the further social development of our thing. And I'm surprised that the Prime Minister um, would subscribe to that in thing. Because while the Prime Minister was away, uh, there was a speech she made in Ethiopia about the about the initiation of the Grand Renaissance Dam in Ethiopia. The Grand Renaissance Dam.
Yes.
It's one of the modern wonders of the world. A massive cost US $5 billion or something. And the significant thing is, here is the Prime Minister leaving our country with a long, proud tradition of self-help. Because remember this, we were never a grant and aid colony of Britain. In other words, Britain never sent any money down to Barbados to pay civil servants or run the country. We always, since 1627, paid our own way out of our own resources. So paid the schools, the hospital out of our own. So there's a new. So what we do, and up to 2018, we never absconded on the debt. We always paid our bills. So now, here's the Prime Minister praising the people of Ethiopia for digging and going from among themselves, raising the $5 million to pay $1 billion to pay for the dam because the Western world and the capitalists did not see it as a valuable property for their loans at exorbitant price. So here she was praising them, but at the same time, we are now supposed to subject ourselves to other people and not perpetuating, building, reviving. The Prime Minister could come up with ideas which can make it even more. For Barbados, the ordinary Barbadians have to contribute towards these causes. You don't have to be a big high financier to be a philanthropist. It should be made through tax incentives and other things that Barbados itself can get accustomed to volunteerism and giving back. Make it meaningful and don't feel it's so one set of people and that you are here have to wait for the crumbs that fall from the master's table to be able to contribute to your society. And I think I'm very uncomfortable with and anybody who want to could when they get place of Business Barbados 2025 comes as an annual publication aimed at the business sector, international business sector. I read that story and find the details of praising the virtues of philanthropy to the private sector, who then will come and give realization to the fact that the government in the distant future will not be able to do its bounden duty to provide social service for Barbados, but that we will have to wait on the goodwill, the beneficence, right, of other people to take it from them to pay or I think it's not good enough. I think it's a backwards. I think it's creating a mentality that we're supposed to move away from the dependency even in political institutions for the British colony, where the British but colonial masters might become a republic. And here create another form of dependency. This is another form of dependency being institutionalized in law and government policy. And if you create that mentality among Barbadians, we will be sowing the seeds for perpetual dependency, lack of self-esteem, lack of self-respect, self-worth, and self-involvement in creating our own future for our future generations. And it is something I think that we should not. That's why we should be very careful of not bequeathing to not bequeathing to future generations. But the question is, what are these philanthropists, apart from this field, what are they getting out of this policy? These contributions just do some good, but as a policy, as a way of life, I think we must know more about what is being done in that regard.
Yes, and we must know more about the philanthropists as well, because, some years ago, Glyne, I spoke with a gentleman that was involved with the Caribbean Development Bank as one of the directors of finance. And we got into discussion, and I mentioned the aspect of philanthropic donors because, of course, I had been appointed the international governor of the AUGP USA to Barbados in 2018. And I got in a conversation with him because through the organization, um, we were able, and I did this on two occasions, we were able to access philanthropic grants. It did have, Glenn, I will tell you, as I'm sure you are well aware, conditions, because people, when they hear a grant, think that it doesn't come with conditions, but it does. And one of those conditions had to do with the fact that the funding had to be managed by a non-governmental organization, and the funds had to be directed directly to the on the ground aspect that the funds were required for. Of course, it was declined here on two occasions that I was involved in. It was not accepted, but he did say to me that he felt that the future, in order to break the strong stranglehold of the World Bank and IMF, were philanthropic donors. And I did then know of several who would have assisted without any strings attached, because of course they were moving their funding, they were trying to escape corruption in their countries. They were doing things to do with which is legal, tax avoidance, by donating. I remember one particular institution being directed by the Security Exchange Control of the United States to provide funding for a third world country in order to move funding from Europe into the United States. They had to do it, and they had to show the SEC that it was done and how it was done. So there's an aspect to it that is good and very transparent, but I believe that this is the challenge we are facing here. We don't have the transparency and accountability that we are asking for.
But okay, well said. And yeah, I'm familiar with some of those activities and conditions and whatnot.
Yeah.
But what I'm afraid is that we have in the past made our way to go in this direction in this way. We have difficulties, but we've always in the past find a way of coping with our difficulties, some more successful than others.